he formed a clear opinion that you had a gambling addiction.
Ivan Toney
has been suspended for 8 months.
What if I told you your favorite Premier League club is working with gambling firms to turn die-hard fans like you and me into gambling addicts? See, 11 of the 20 teams chasing this season's title have betting firms as their main sponsor. These firms pour in £100 million into the league simply for the right to advertise gambling to us, with over 27,000 betting ads flashing across screens, radio stations and billboards, all in the Premier League's opening weekend.
Not only are you betting on the outcome of a match, you could be betting on events that take place during the match. Who's going to get the next corner? Who's going to score the next goal?
I want to take you down a rabbit hole to discover why the Premier League has sold its soul to betting firms, why clubs like Brentford, West Ham and Aston Villa need betting sponsors to keep them in England's top flight, and how these gambling firms hope we the fans evolve from mere spectators to gambling addicts.
Was that the first time you'd heard of gambling addiction?
In September 2022, West Ham didn't accidentally flirt with gambling, they normalized it for kids. They released what looked like an innocent coloring book, a cute teddy bear for young fans to fill in. But tucked in the corner of that same page was a direct link to Betway's betting website. So while parents thought their children were just coloring in a bear, the club was quietly steering them towards a gambling company. The backlash was immediate. Parents, supporters and campaigners said this crossed the line, turning something playful into a gateway to gambling. And West Ham weren't alone. Tottenham, Arsenal and Aston Villa were found doing similar things. Regulators say these tactics were the exact kind of subtle, sneaky and conniving methods betting firms use to normalize gambling for young people. Betway were fined £400,000 by the UK's Gambling Commission. That sounded serious until you remember the same company made £317 million in revenue the year before. For them, that fine was barely a slap on the wrist. So, most fans ask a simple question. If clubs knew betting harms supporters, why don't they just cut these deals? And here's the uncomfortable truth. Many clubs feel like they can't. Betting sponsorship is no longer just marketing. For mid-table clubs, it's survival money. This is where PSR, the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules, come in. In simple terms, PSR says a Premier League club cannot lose more than £105 million over 3 years. Break that rule, you risk fines, point deductions, and even relegation back to the Championship. Everton and Nottingham Forest found this out the hard way. They spent aggressively, lost too much money, and got punished. And here's a twist most fans miss. Since clubs like Everton and Nottingham Forest started leaning into gambling sponsors, they have actually become more PSR compliant. Why? Because betting deals provide fast and reliable cash that helps them balance their books, reduce their losses, and stay inside the £105 million limit the Premier League had set. So while fans see betting sponsors as immoral, the league's own rules has pushed clubs to rely on them. In other words, the Premier League created rules that made clubs financially dependent on the very industry, harming their supporters. For some mid-table teams, losing Betway, Stake, or Hollywood bets wouldn't just mean losing money. It could mean breaking PSR again and facing relegation. That's why these partnerships persist. Clubs aren't just choosing betting money. Many of them feel trapped by it. Nowhere is this contradiction more clear than in the story of Brentford and Ivan Toney. Gambling is everywhere in English football, on shirts, pitch side boards, halftime ads, and TV breaks. So when Toney was revealed to be a gambling addict in 2023, it felt less like shock and more like a symptom of the system.
I feel like it wouldn't be in me to bring myself forward to speak to one of these people to see if I did have one. So it's kind of like I said, my stubbornness comes into play on this one. It's kind of like, no, I'm fine. I can stop when I want to stop.
What did someone explain to you what a gambling addiction is since then?
A little bit, yeah. We did speak with Dr. Harpley on around what addiction is, but it's kind of like you don't allow yourself to believe it. Like, I feel like if you want to stop doing something, I feel like people think in their head, I can stop if I want to, but not knowing deep down, you probably can't.
Could you have stopped?
Probably.
The FA banned him for 8 months and fined him £50,000 after finding he placed 29 bets involving his team. 16 bets for Brentford to win in 11 of those 16 games he played, scoring in 7. 13 bets against Brentford in matches he didn't play. Some people called him reckless. Others said this is what happens when the entire football ecosystem is funded by gambling. But here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Brentford's reliance on betting money, their use of Ivan Toney as both a star striker and a commercial asset, and the league's PSR rules all collided in a way most fans never see. And before we judge Premier League clubs for taking betting money, we need to understand how football finance actually works. So let's slow down and take a look at Brentford's 2023-24 financial report, because once you see the numbers, everything changes. When the FA, England's Football Association, banned Ivan Toney in May 2023 for breaching their betting rules, Brentford lost their main striker for 8 months. On the pitch, they held up well. They finished 9th, beat Manchester City, and played fearless football. But off the pitch, Brentford had financial trouble looming, because finishing 9th doesn't mean you're financially safe. At the end of every Premier League season, clubs receive something called broadcasting revenue. That's just TV money. Broadcasters like Sky and international networks pay billions to show Premier League matches. That money is divided between the 20 clubs competing in the Premier League. The higher you finish, the more you earn. Manchester City, who finished first and won the league, earned £176.2 million. Liverpool finished 5th, missed out on Champions League qualification, but still earned £162.4 million. And Brentford, who finished 9th, their highest ever Premier League finish, earned themselves £138.7 million. £138.7 million does sound enormous, but here's the uncomfortable reality. That money already has commitments before the season even ends. Over 70% of the Premier League's mid-table clubs' revenue goes straight to wages. Take a look at Brentford's profit and loss statement for that year. Their wage bill alone was close to almost £100 million. That's player and staff salaries alone, before transfers, stadium costs, travel, and academy expenses. Even while suspended, Ivan Toney still had to be paid. His £50,000 per week salary continued. Over 8 months, that's roughly £1.75 million for a player who couldn't even play. Now remember, earlier I mentioned PSR, the Premier League's financial rulebook, and how each club is permitted to lose no more than £105 million across 3 consecutive years. If Brentford had failed to comply, the FA deducts points, dragging them closer to a relegation battle back to the EPL. And you don't only lose your place in the world's most competitive league, relegation costs over £100 million in lost TV revenue the following season. So Brentford had 2 options. 1, distance themselves from their betting sponsor Hollywood Bets and lose a major stream of income. 2, renegotiate the deal, increase sponsorship revenue, stay within PSR limits, and protect their Premier League status. And as soon as Brentford realized they didn't have a moral debate on their hands and they had a financial deadline, they did what any sensible business would. They chose the money. In the renegotiated deal, Hollywood Bets agreed to increase their commitment. Brentford would be paid £11.7 million to continue advertising Hollywood Bets to their fans across social media platforms, and front of shirt sponsorship rising to £27.7 million from £20 million the previous year, roughly £10 million more than the previous season. Regardless of how much betting money has funded the clubs we love, paid for blockbuster signings, balanced PSR books, and bought naming rights for West Ham's London Stadium, and even with the efforts I have made in making the need for betting sponsorships more obvious to all of us, there is still a truth nobody in football wants to admit. The more gambling becomes normal, the more the game we love becomes vulnerable, and the FA knows it. Because this isn't just about players placing bets, it's about the integrity of the game. Most fans may lump every betting breach into the same category, but there's a critical difference. When Ivan Toney and Sandro Tonali bet, even using insider information like whether they would start or set out a game, that's a regulatory and ethical violation. It breaks the rules and crosses a moral line, but it doesn't necessarily alter what happens on the pitch. Match fixing, on the other hand, and spot fixing does, and that's where all hell breaks loose. What is match and spot fixing, you may ask? Well, match fixing is when a result is predetermined before kickoff. Players, referees, and officials are bribed to ensure a specific outcome, lose, win, or draw. Spot fixing, on the other hand, is more surgical. A player is paid to perform one specific action at a specific moment: a yellow card, a corner conceded, or a penalty given away. The final score may not change, because today you don't just bet on who wins, you can bet on first throw-ins, minute of the first goal, whether a specific player gets carded, micro events, tiny moments, and that's where Lucas Paquetá's case becomes chilling.
Bowen, Ward, Prowse, the player forward, Paquetá!
Because between late 2022 and 2023, betting operators flagged something impossible to ignore: a surge of high-stake bets placed on Paquetá to receive a yellow card. Now let me keep you up to date. Betting operators are just betting firms like Sky Bet, Bet365, and Ladbrokes, having their data engineers send data to England's Football Association. Now, for them to be allowed to advertise within the Premier League and England's lower leagues, the FA requires these companies to monitor corruption, suspicious bets, and so on. So, between late 2022 and 2023, betting operators reported something to the FA they deemed as suspicious: a surge of high-stake bets placed on West Ham's Lucas Paquetá to receive a yellow card. These weren't just normal bets. 253 of all bets on Lucas Paquetá to receive a yellow card reportedly traced back to an area within the radius of Paquetá Island in Rio de Janeiro, his hometown. Now, if you're like me, thinking Lucas Paquetá has his hometown named after him, no, that's not the case at all. It's apparently common practice amongst Brazilian footballers to spawn their hometown as a nickname to represent their place of origin at football's highest stage. Now, England's Football Association alleged that Lucas Paquetá was in cahoots with a handful of his mates on Paquetá Island to place maximum stake bets on him getting a yellow card in 4 specific games in the English Premier League across 9 months. Now, what made this more explosive was the betting pattern. Around 60 people from the same small area near his hometown reportedly placed maximum stake bets on him getting booked multiple times and won. For betting operators who track GPS data, account links, and financial movement, those 60 bets on Paquetá Island didn't look random, they looked coordinated. These games consisted of a 2-0 home defeat to Leicester City on November the 12th, 2022, a 1-1 draw at home to Aston Villa on March the 12th, 2023, a 3-1 victory over Leeds United on May the 21st, 2023, and finally a 1-1 draw away at Bournemouth on the opening day of the 2023-24 season. I mean, I'm sorry, but the odds of 60 people in one tiny neighborhood independently deciding to place their maximum allowance on a defensive midfielder getting booked and being right 4 times in a row, I feel, are essentially zero. More allegations surfaced that relatives of Paquetá, essentially Paquetá's uncle and cousin, made payments totaling £5,000 towards Luis Henriquez, another Brazilian player who plays for La Liga's Real Betis, just days before Henrique also received a suspicious yellow card in a separate game. This suggests a spot fixing ring where players are potentially being used as assets to trigger payments for a specific group of people back at home. In professional football, a tactical foul is a logical business decision to stop a goal, but the FA highlighted the Leicester City 2022 foul as a total anomaly. Lucas Paquetá launched into a challenge near the halfway line when there was no danger to the West Ham goal. To the FA, this wasn't a mistake, it was a forced entry into the ledger. He needed a yellow card to fulfill a contract, and he took the earliest, most unnecessary opportunity to get it. Unlike the case of Ivan Toney and Sandro Tonali, 6 to 8 month bans, in the case of Lucas Paquetá, if found guilty, the FA wanted the Brazilian to be banned for life. Why? Because while Toney and Tonali cheated the rules betting on games, they didn't cheat the result. The FA's argument is that Paquetá manipulated the actual product. If a player can be bought to perform a specific action, the entire multi-billion-pound broadcasting industry is built on a lie. They wanted to make an example of him to ensure that the data of the Premier League remains a bankable asset.
Lucas Paquetá has been charged with misconduct in relation to alleged breaches of FA rules E5 and F3. So more on that. The player has been charged with 4 breaches of FA Rule E5, one in relation to his conduct in the club's Premier League fixtures against Leicester City. This is on the 12th of November 2022. Aston Villa on the 12th of March 2023. So the end of last season, as it were. Leeds United, 21st of May 2023, and a game against Bournemouth on the 12th of August 2023 as well. So the beginning of this season, which has just finished. It's alleged that he directly sought to influence the progress, conduct, or any other aspect of or occurrence in these matches by intentionally seeking to receive a card from the referee.
Because in this specific case, betting operators didn't just see random bets being placed in Rio. Using GPS and account data, they tracked the bets to the player's inside circle. This is the ultimate digital footprint trap. Even if there is no smoking gun text message saying, "I will get a yellow card," the data showed a direct financial link between the action on the pitch in London and bank accounts in Rio de Janeiro. But regardless of the mounting evidence the FA believed they had against Lucas Paquetá, it resulted in a total system failure. After 2 years of investigation, the charges were ruled not proven. But for a professional like Paquetá, not guilty didn't fix his destroyed market value in England. His £80 million move to Manchester City died, and his reputation was tainted data.
Knows that Lucas Paquetá is considering suing the FA after he was cleared of spot fixing in July. But we understand that West Ham will not be suing for damages over Paquetá's collapsed £80 million transfer to Manchester City back in the summer of 2023. West Ham feel that it isn't good to sue governing bodies who do a difficult job. Meanwhile, Paquetá's lawyer, Alistair Campbell, told us that the player is considering his options.
I would advise him to think seriously about that as an option. You know, what he's lost is immeasurable in financial terms. If you look at where his career could have gone, how close he was to moving to Manchester City, who then went on to win the Premier League that year, that is a very considerable loss to him. So nothing is off the table at this point, but it's something we're talking to Lucas about. It's under consideration, but he wants to focus on his football now.
To reclaim his value and peace, he made a record-breaking £42 million escape to Flamengo, the most expensive signing in South American history.
Start by talking about Lucas Paquetá. He's arrived back in Flamengo, has he? Tell us about this saga. Is it finally coming to an end? And how big a coup will this be for Brazilian football?
Yeah, we're about an hour and a half away from the Paquetá Express landing at Rio Airport. There will be lots of fans there out to meet him because this is a hugely significant deal. This really is a transfer coup. And Brazilian football has been growing, getting richer, and the big clubs have been bringing players back from Europe, but usually either veterans rounding off their careers or people who really haven't found their feet in European football. Paquetá doesn't fit into either of those categories. He's 28 at the peak of his footballing powers, and he is a current Brazilian international with 59 caps. And the reason that he's going home now is that he really wants to cement his place, not only in the squad, but maybe in the team for Brazil's World Cup campaign. The reason that Flamengo wants him is that their sights are on the Club World Cup.
And regardless of the lack of evidence to ban Lucas Paquetá, this very incident exposed the trap gambling has brought into the game we love. Think of it this way. The Premier League has invited gambling companies to be the game's biggest sponsors, which is like putting a vending machine for betting right in the middle of the pitch, because these sponsors make money from side bets, like guessing exactly when a player will get a yellow card. They have accidentally created a menu for cheaters. When a player wears a betting logo on their shirt, it blurs the line between playing for the win and playing for a payout. You can promote a league as unscripted drama while simultaneously selling the very tools that allow people to write the script. And on the back of mounting public pressure over gambling's growing presence in football, the UK's government decided to step in and review advertising laws. Critics who were against gambling sponsors argued that the Premier League had allowed betting to become inseparable from the sport, with logos on shirts, pitch-side ads, and in-play betting prompts during live broadcasts. For young fans especially, this constant exposure blurred the line between watching football and betting. Regulators questioned whether placing betting brands on the chests of players, idols to millions of kids, had normalized gambling for an entire generation. In 2023, facing regulatory scrutiny, all 20 Premier League clubs had agreed to voluntarily remove gambling sponsors from front of shirt match day shirts starting from the 2026-27 season. So that means when the 2025-26 campaign ends, those betting logos will disappear, meaning at the end of the season, when Arsenal lifts the Premier League, it will mark the end to clubs having betting sponsors on their front of shirt. However, the issue ran deeper than shared logos alone. A less understood but more controversial practice involved with regulators refers to white label sponsorships. In simple terms, a white label agreement allows a gambling brand to operate under the license of another company. Instead of holding its own full UK gambling license, the brand rents a regulatory cover from a licensed operator. This meant overseas-facing betting companies could legally advertise in the UK's Premier League without being independently regulated at the same level. Meaning even if this betting company can be used by Premier League's fans, they would use the Premier League's exposure to advertise to its fans around the world, and particularly Asian fans who religiously watch the Premier League. Between 2023 and 2025, several high-profile clubs were connected to this structure. Newcastle United's long-running deal with Fan88, Aston Villa's partnership with BK8, and Everton's relationship with Stake.com were all examples of primarily targeting Asian markets who secured shirt sponsorship exposure in England. In many of the regions these companies target, gambling is either heavily restricted or outright illegal. By associating themselves with a recognized Premier League club, these brands gain a powerful form of credibility. The logic is straightforward. If a betting company's logo appears on a Premier League shirt broadcasted worldwide, it carries an implied sense of legitimacy and trustworthiness, luring the viewers of the Premier League to illegal betting sites and profiting from the advertising provided by our coveted league.
These Premier League clubs have agreed to ban gambling companies from sponsorship of the front of their shirts from the start of the 2025-26 season. The
clubs have taken a voluntary decision to reduce the prominence of gambling advertising. There are currently 8 Premier League clubs who have front shirt sponsors with an estimated value of £60 million per year. Let's just bring you the statement from the Premier League that's just been given to us, which says Premier League clubs have today collectively agreed to withdraw gambling sponsorship from the front of clubs' matchday shirts, becoming the first sports league in the UK to take such a measure voluntarily in order to reduce gambling advertising.